Einar the Viking stood on the bridge of the sea serpent, his heart racing as he watched the flames consume his ship. It had all happened so fast. One moment, they were sailing calmly across the Atlantic, searching for new lands to conquer. The next, the fire had broken out in the galley, spreading quickly through the dry wood of the ship. Einar shouted orders to his crew, directing them to abandon ship and lower the lifeboats. But as they rushed to follow his commands, a strange and seductive sound echoed across the deck. It was the song of the sirens, creatures of myth and legend that were said to lure sailors to their deaths with their enchanting voices. Einar could feel the pull of the sirens' song, tempting him to stay on the burning ship and meet his demise. He knew the stories of men who had been unable to resist the sirens' charms, and he knew that if he didn't fight back, he would be doomed. Grimly, he steeled himself against the sirens' song and fought to clear his mind. He shouted commands to his crew, urging them to resist the sirens' charms and row for their lives. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lifeboats were ready and the crew began to abandon ship. Einar watched as his men lowered themselves over the side, rowing frantically away from the burning wreckage. As they rowed through the rough seas, Einar couldn't help but wonder what other dangers lay ahead. He knew they were sailing into the heart of the Bermuda Triangle, a mysterious and treacherous region of the ocean that had claimed countless ships and lives. But he also knew that his crew was strong and resourceful, and that they would face whatever challenges came their way. For days, they rowed through stormy seas and scorching sun, their supplies dwindling and their spirits tested. Just when they thought they couldn't go on any longer, they saw land on the horizon. Einar's heart swelled with joy as he realized they had reached the promised land, a new and uncharted territory that they would be the first to explore. And as they made their way ashore, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets and treasures this new land held. But as they began to explore their new home, they soon realized that they were not alone. The land was inhabited by a fierce and warlike people, who seemed determined to drive the newcomers away. Einar knew they would have to fight if they wanted to stay, and he was ready for the challenge. As he stood on the beach, his sword in hand and his crew by his side, he knew that this was just the beginning of their adventure. Einar and his crew had been on the new land for only a few hours when they were confronted by a group of natives. The natives were tall and muscular, with tattooed bodies and fierce expressions. They carried weapons made of stone and wood, and they seemed determined to drive the newcomers away. Einar knew they couldn't back down. He had brought his sword and shield, and he was ready to fight for his right to explore this new land. He gestured to his men, signaling for them to take up their weapons and stand ready. The natives' attack came quickly, with a shower of arrows and a flurry of spears. Einar and his crew fought back with all their might, their swords and axes flashing in the sunlight. The battle was fierce and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But in the end, it was Einar and his crew who emerged victorious. The natives, realizing they were outmatched, retreated into the jungle, leaving the newcomers to claim the land as their own. Einar and his crew celebrated their victory with a feast on the beach, roasting the meat of the animals they had hunted and toasting to their success. But as they sat around the fire, Einar couldn't help but wonder what other dangers and challenges lay ahead. He knew that this was just the beginning of their adventure, and that there were many more battles to be fought and lands to be conquered. But he also knew that he had a loyal and skilled crew by his side, and that together, they could conquer anything. As he gazed out at the stars, he vowed to lead his men to greatness, no matter what obstacles stood in their way. As the days passed, Einar and his crew began to explore their new home. They were struck by the beauty of the land, with its lush forests, sparkling streams, and sandy beaches. They marveled at the exotic animals that roamed the jungle, and they were amazed by the abundance of fruit and vegetables that grew wild. But they also encountered many dangers. There were venomous snakes and spiders, and fierce predators that lurked in the shadows. And there were the natives, who seemed determined to drive the newcomers away. Einar and his crew had several more battles with the natives, each one more fierce than the last. But they were skilled warriors, and they always emerged victorious. As they explored further and further into the jungle, they began to uncover the secrets of the land. They discovered ancient ruins, hidden caves, and mysterious temples, and they realized that this was a place full of mystery and magic. As they explored, Einar couldn't help but think of the woman he had left behind in his homeland. Her name was Helga, and she was the most beautiful woman he had ever known. He had left her with a heavy heart, knowing that his quest for adventure might take him far from her side. But as he roamed the jungle, he began to realize that his heart belonged with Helga. He missed her warmth and her laughter, and he longed to return to her side. One night, as he sat alone by the fire, he made a decision. He would lead his crew back to their homeland, and he would marry Helga and spend the rest of his days by her side. And so, with heavy hearts but a sense of adventure still burning within them, Einar and his crew set sail for home. As they sailed across the ocean, they told tales of their adventures and their discoveries, and they knew that they had made their mark on the world. When they finally returned to their homeland, they were greeted with cheers and celebrations. Einar and Helga were married in a grand ceremony, and they spent the rest of their days ruling over their people and exploring the wonders of the world. Einar knew that he would always be a Viking at heart, with a thirst for adventure and a love of the sea. But he also knew that he had found his true home, and that he would always cherish the memories of the journey that had brought him there.